We'll get started. And so we now, from this week on, and we have 3 weeks, and to talk about actually creating a mobile apps. So far we covered the view, and we covered the backend, and so now, and also covered progressive web apps as well. So you can develop something which looks and works almost like a native app. And then for the last part of this module, which is a little bit later now, and is to actually build a real native app, something you can put into, say, Google Play or App Store, and people can download and install. And also, as we will see later, a little bit later on, and so these are using native components in terms, say, the search bars or buttons from the, say, either Android or iOS, not say the buttons you get from HTML5. And so the particular way we're going to use is, again, a library called NativeScript. Uh, that's it's like a library which allows you to develop, say, native apps without using, say, Java or, say, Swift. And again, so you can write once and you can have both Android and iOS apps. But in this module, and we're not going to cover how to actually convert and actual or compile the actual code into, say, the native code. And instead, we're using something called the playground, which allows you to write the code online, and they can see it on your phone straight away. It's much faster. Also, save some of the setting up and problems. Okay, so we're going to explain what NativeScript and NativeScript-Vue is. And we're going to be using NativeScript-Vue, which is kind of like a flavor of NativeScript designed specifically for using with Vue. And we're going to look at a little bit under the hood, different parts that forms NativeScript and how they work together. And most of the time, we're going to spending on going through examples using the playground. This is, you can see exactly how do you create an app using NativeScript-Vue. So the playground is what we call the online editing environment, and you could do it locally as well. So it's the same, but the online one will be faster. Okay, and I kind of covered these already. So NativeScript-Vue is a framework or library that allows you to build iOS and Android applications, but not using these native language required. So, say, if you want to write iOS applications, Apple would want you to use Objective-C or Swift, and for Android it will be Java or Kotlin, and this allows you to write the app in JavaScript and CSS. And it's cross-platform, so that means you write once, you run both platforms, and it's native. Okay, so the native, in the sense, NativeScript is different from other frameworks which you can create apps, but essentially the app itself is just a web page or web app running inside certain containers. And this one is different in the sense you are using the actual Android buttons and icons in your app, not something you would use in a browser. Oh, hang on, let me turn that off. Okay, and so we're going to be using this particular flavor of the NativeScript, which is designed to use with Vue.js, and it's also designed to work with Angular as well as different flavor. Or you have the pure NativeScript, which is just JavaScript without any particular framework support. Um, ooh. Okay, so this roughly shows you how it works, and these are the code you need to write. So you need to write the user interface, which is UI stands for, and there's something called XML. We're going to explain what that is a little bit later on. And then you need to write the CSS part in terms of formatting these component positions, colors, font, etc. And then you need to add the logic, which essentially is JavaScript. In our case, will be Vue. And so the logic means, okay, what happens when you user press a button or swipe left on your interface? So these are logic. And then so far, you would know the CSS and JavaScript already in terms of Vue. And we're going to cover a little bit, explain what the XML part or the UI part is different. Hello. I got some of the page missing, not showing up for some reason. So what? Okay. 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 I just made the picture slightly smaller. Just want to show the last line, which was hiding. And so, in terms of the XML, its role is very similar to the HTML in the web apps. So in the apps we're creating so far, if you want to say forms, text field, buttons, text picture, you're using HTML. And in this case, you use some specific XML element created by the NativeScript-Vue. So instead of having HTML, CSS, JavaScript, we're going to using an XML, CSS, and Vue. Okay. Have you heard of XML before? Some of you did. And think of like a XML is like kind of like a meta language, and then HTML is like one examples of created by XML. So if XML set certain rules, then you can use define different type of XML for different purposes. Okay. This is way too big. Uh, oh, but at least you can. Uh, why there's no? Okay, let me try like a little bit later. Okay, and so as I said, an XML in our case will be take the role very similar to HTML, and previously you would say body, button, label, or div, and then in the native script you will use page, again still called button but it's different one, and the label and different layout elements. So you can almost find equivalent of the HTML element, but they might have slightly different names. Sometimes even the name is the same. Yeah, that's all it is. And the way you use it is the same. I have to make this smaller so you can see the. Hang on, let me restart this thing. Yeah, okay. Now the scroll bar is back, so I can scroll down, so that's better. Okay, and so this is something and probably looks quite similar to you. So it's not that different from the HTML. So you instead of body, you have page, and you have the start and closing tag of the page, and inside the page you have a stack layout. So that's a bit different. So now the layout is specified and using a particular tag instead of say using CSS. But then inside you have label, which is more like a paragraph in HTML, and then you don't put the actual text in between the opening and the closing tags. You say text equal to something something. Okay, and so in general, it's not that different from the HTML. You just had to learn all these different new elements that the native script provides. which is actually not too difficult. And okay, and so this gives you a little bit more details about the kind of under the hood how the native script works. So this is like the overall structure. Do I have a description? Okay. Uh, so this is the thing you need to write, application code, and everything else is provided by the native script in some way. And then first, and it allows you to work with different flavors of framework. So you have Vue here, you have Angular here, and this is not using any framework. So you can just use plain JavaScript or TypeScript. And then, okay, and then this is the native script core modules, and this is where and it provides these kind of elements like page, stack layout, label, these elements. So these are part of the core modules. So that gives you a way to create the user interface and do other things. And then this one is similar to the core modules, but people can create these new features to add more functions to the native script basically system so other people can use it. So you can create your own customized buttons or more complex search functions, for example, use as plugin. Uh, so this is where kind of how do I say the conversion happens is when you write your code in JavaScript and using NativeScript, and the runtime here will convert them into the native code. So if, for example, on Android, it will create everything you write in JavaScript and the NativeScript into native Android components, convert to native buttons and boxes and layout, etc. And then similarly for iOS, it will convert it to native iOS components to make sure they can actually run. Okay, on this side is something similar to what we're going to cover in the module. Is that instead of compiling to the actual native code, you can actually just run them in the browser through this NativeScript CLI, command line tools, and it can be shown on the iOS or Android device. Yeah, and I think I covered all these already. Okay, now we get to the fun part is actually to creating and kind of simple app, the to-do app using the native playground. Okay. So first, an NSV stands for Native Script View. So we're going to use that quite a bit because that's what the flavor of native script we're going to be using. Okay. Uh, so we're going to cover explain most everything using Playground and including the last coursework. So for the last coursework, we're expecting you to write your code and get it running in the Playground. Okay, and the main reason is says instead of actually including and run it in the playground, you can run it locally. You can download everything, set up, and there's lots of potential issues. The first is to get the local environment running on Windows and Mac OS. It's a bit different. I have different issues when preparing. And then on each of these operating systems, and you can run both Android and iOS simulator. For example, you can run a Android simulator on macOS. Then these come set a different set of issues you can have. Okay, and we will not be cover these in the module. You could try if you want to, but we're going to just stick with the playground, which is the online interface, which something looks like this, and much easier to see the more interesting part, which is actually creating the interface, adding the functions, rather than say try to get it compiled to the native code. Okay, and so that's the URL. And if you click and you go to the web page, and looks like something like this, and it's actually not that different and from Visual Studio Code. So, and this online editor and the site as well, and is using the same editor used in the Visual Studio Code. So some of the keyboard shortcuts will still work in here if you're using Visual Studio Code, the default ones. For example, I can change the setting of whether to have line wrap or not, and we will still work here. Okay, and that's not necessary. Okay, and then so what you need to do is, and you will write your code here. This is like a kind of template you always start with, and then you click preview when you want to see what it looks like actually works on the phone. And then what you need to do is to install two apps on your phone. One is called Native Playground, and the other one is called Native Preview. So this one you have to install, and I think this one will come with the first one, but you will need both. And so what happens is, say, you just scan this QR code in Native Playground, and then it will open the app on your phone. Okay, so I'm going to try to demonstrate now. Let me see. Okay, so the first I need to connect to my okay, so I try to connect to my phone. I need to run it. Oops, why is it not connecting? Ah, okay. Okay. At least it's now connected. So I try to. Okay. And so what you're actually seeing now, that little screen is my phone. I'll make it a bit bigger. Let me take this one out. So I made this one bigger so it can be slightly easier to see. Okay, and if we come back here, okay, I have to make this one smaller so I have space. Ooh. Okay, yeah, it's slightly lag. And so you can see on my phone, and the settings not particularly good. Yeah. And so I have both these apps installed already. So there's this one, which is called, this is a native script playground, and that what interface look like. And you click and scan QR code, and it will scan So I just scan that button, and you can see now that's displayed. So that's basically is the app running. So this is what this code does. So if you can see, it's very simple. It has just three text labels. So the text is say play with NativeScript, write code something something, and scan the QR code, etc., etc. That's all it is. And you can make changes every time you make changes, and it will actually automatically, for example, if I type something random, okay, not particularly nice, and you can see the phone flashed, and you have some text changed, yeah, and then should work on your Android. And also you can see here, and at the bottom here, you can see it shows my mobile phone is connected, the models, the versions of Android, and the version of something. So that's some information here. Yeah, so that's roughly how it works. So let me see. So this is actual lectures. Um, okay, so what we're gonna do is today we're gonna actually follow the tutorial that was played and provided by the NativeScript that actually creates a to-do app. Where was it? NativeScript-Vue. I don't have the. Where did the tutorial go? Hmm. Okay. Okay. Then let's just get back to this one. I wish I could make this size smaller. And so we're gonna following this. So and if you click here and then choose Intact Tutorials, and you would have two options, and one is called Getting Started, which creates a to-do app, which is what we're gonna try go through. I doubt we'll be able to finish it, but try to do as much as we can and continue next week. And we probably would not have time to cover the weather app, and also it's not that relevant in terms of um, for your coursework. So obviously I have done this before, so I'll restart. Okay, and you don't really see. Yep. Okay, and so the first part of this tutorial is just explaining the interface, how it works. And as you would already see, and on this side, and this is probably already guessed, so this will be your files and file structures. And as we just explained last week, NativeScript-Vue gonna use this single file component, which is .vue extension, and you can have other things like CSS and other JavaScript as well. But mostly you'll be creating these .vue files, and you will create more as you go on. So far we only have one, just called Hello World. And also useful is this part, and these are the kind of components created or provided by NativeScript-Vue, and you should be able to drag and drop instead of having to write the code. So for example, if I wrap the code here, and for example, if I say currently I have these 3 text labels, what if I make this smaller? Wow. Yeah, you just will not be able to see. Okay, and I can drag and drop a button, and which is a little bit slow. You need to get used to it. So I'm holding down the button, and I'll try to put it into my code. And you have to watch where the cursor is on the screen. So currently the cursor is on template, which is not quite what I want it to be. Now it's just behind the page. Again, it's not what I really want it to be. So I'll try to move to get it to the place I want. Come on. Okay. So this is better. So I can just drop it here. And you can see now it adds this line of text to your code. And then if you save, oops. Hey, come on. Ah, I think it's a lost connection. Preview. Let's just scan again. Come on. Okay, and you can see this is now already, and this is on my phone, as you can see, and you can already see has a new button here. That's just what I just added. Okay, so that's roughly how it works. And as I mentioned, it sometimes can be a little bit fiddly to drag and drop. You could just type your code, say, and bracket button text equal to button on tab and equal to on button tab, and you can actually see, and it not just create a button, but also it creates this function for you, and in the script section as well automatically. So assume you would want to do something when you click this button. So this on button tab function is already created for you. Currently, it doesn't really do anything, just do a console log. Okay. So there are many components you can do. So there's buttons, labels, pictures, and also actually you can use the search. And for example, if you want something particularly from the grid, and you can just then will filter it out, and you can drag it onto your code, into your code, which is usually a bit faster. Okay, and also quite important are these ones. So first, you have this one, and which is the name of your project. So whatever you write in here, you can actually save. But you have to first log in. If I now try to change the name to something else, um, and it will not, and I try to save, that's the middle one. Ah, okay, you can save as well. Oh, that's interesting. Editor. Oops. Okay, and if you create account, if you click so I had account, and in my case, gonna use my GitHub account. And then you have this new option here called projects. So then you can have multiple projects, and you can give them different names, and it will tell you how many saves or different versions you have saved. And for example, the second one is to do app. and it has 15 versions. And if you click that, it just goes back to that particular version of code. So for example, if now I call this lecture demo and then I save, and then if you go to the project, you can see now I have a new thing called lecture demo version 1. Yeah? And the other nice thing about this is to retrieve this version of the code, all you need is just the URL. So the URL is unique for each version of the code. So if you just save that version URL, you should get back to the code you was on before. Yeah, start. Okay. And the other thing might be useful is this download button. Download button just means you can download all the code here into a zip file and you can save it on your computer. That's another way to get a copy of the code. And you can do fork, which exactly means the fork in GitHub. That means you can create another copy of the same code, but will not change this copy. Does that make sense? So if I create fork, and it will give you another new copy. You can see now I have 2 of these. Then I can edit another one from what it was, the first version. And the QR code is just to show the QR code again. And because sometimes the phone would lost connection, and then so that means when you change in the browser and the phone is not updating, then you need to show the QR code and scan it again. So that's why you use this QR code. And the new is just creating a different type of project. And so we are using NativeScript plus Vue. You can say with Angular, TypeScript, or native JavaScript. You can also do Reactive Native as well, or Svelte. Yeah, but these two, as you can see, they are the template created by the community, not by the people creating NativeScript. Yeah. And we had a quick look of these bottom page as well. You have these panels. It's not even showing up on here. So it actually should show the connected device here, the information we're seeing before. Any information comes from the device. So for example, later on, if you want to run the code, there's errors on your mobile phone, and it should show up here. And finally, this is error of the code here inside the editor. Yeah, okay. So we already demonstrated this part. The second step will just be getting the 2 apps. If we go back to the button, there's the not very clear to see, but there's NativeScript and NativeScript Playground and NativeScript Preview. So that's it. Let me see. Do I missing anything here? Yes, I already demonstrated. Once you open, you run the scan QR code part, and it brings up the camera, and you scan the actual page, and it will open up the actual app. Yeah, now it's connected properly. Okay, and so this is what your app currently looks like. Not particularly interesting. I think this is on the. Okay, so these have 2 pictures. There's one of them is Android, one of them is iOS. I can't really tell which one is which, but you can see they looks quite similar anyway. Okay, and the next one is just to demonstrate the drag and drop. We already tested it. So let me see if I can keep that on top. No. Okay, let's just try to do it again. So I can drag a button and hopefully to the right place. Takes a little bit of exercise. And so you can see now the cursor is flashing. That's exactly where I wanted. And you can drop it. You can change the text. And you see my first button. This is very important. And then if you switch to the other, and you can see we have the here, and that's what the text is as we change. You can actually change the formatting straight away, just as you would do. For example, and if I sync here in my button, the text is a little bit too small, so I can just use the CSS to change. And then here, and the CSS works exactly the same as you would do, but here the element itself is called button. So you can format it like say button font size, and you can see the interface is actually quite similar to Visual Studio Code, but give you these prompts. I can't remember 20 EM. No comma. Okay, and if now we switch to the, and you can see these buttons look slightly text a little bit bigger, yeah. And so basically, this is a view file, the single file component, exactly as you would have done last week. Practice, that's the same. Component. Click a component. Okay, so next part is about checking, see the changes in real time. Again, I already demonstrated it, and if the change is not showing up on the phone, and just click the preview, but by default, if you click save, and which is Control S or Command S on Macintosh, and it would automatically trigger a refresh on your phone, so you don't have to click preview all the time. Okay, and then now we're gonna start moving on to actually creating the apps. And so before that, we're going to look at very briefly these a few simple things. And so first, you need a template to start with, and then you need a page, almost like the body. The template is almost like the HTML tag, and the page is like the body tag. Then this action bar is like the title bar or for your app. So this is something unique to app. You only exist in different apps. So in this case, we have action bar title called home, and we can, for example, we can change that to to-do app. And I save this. And you can see now this is the action bar, and the text is now changed. So that's something you will need for old apps. And then we have this next element called the scroll view. You probably guessed by the name. That means it creates a view. And if the content is longer or more than what you can fit in screen, it allows you to scroll up and down. Yeah, that's the scroll view, usually. And then this sets the layout for the page. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later on. But basically, that decides all these different things you add to the page, how that will be kind of displayed on the page. So the stack layout is probably the simplest. All it does is just says everything, these things will appear in order. So that's why doesn't allow me. What is my password? Okay, I need to get it back. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So I was talking about this stacked layout, and what it does is for these three labels, and one would appear below the other, like this. That's all the stack layout does. You need some layout, and finally, again, the button will appear after the text you already have on your interface. That's all. Okay, and so when we finish the entire tutorial, and this is something that you would be built, I guess maybe easier just to uh, open the final code. It looks like this. Okay, so now I'm gonna try to run it on my phone, and so I click preview, and it will show this, and I'll scan that code on my phone. Come on. Yeah. This is okay. It tries to connect. Okay. Okay. Finally. And then I can switch to the actual app itself. Okay, so this is what the completed the app would look like. Again, let me improve the resolution a bit. So you can see this is the action bar. The title is called My Tasks. And here is the list of uncompleted tasks. And you can type something in here. So if I type here, new task, and enter, and you can see it's get added to there, right? And then it's a little bit small at the bottom, but actually there are two tabs. The text in the first tab says My Task, and which is this current task, and there's a second one which is called Completed, and if we click, and currently it's empty, and so for any task in here, and if I, for example, if I select feed dog, and it will be moved into the completed task, and if you switch, does this work? No. You switch back here, you can see the feed dog task is gone. And similarly, if I click here, okay, you can't really see the interaction on my phone, but then it will move any completed task onto the second tab. Okay, so that's the entire tutorial. When finished, it will look like this. So we need to add and different components, add the view logic behind it, and also change the formatting and layout on the way as well. Okay, so now we go back to the original task code. So this is, I will switch back. Uh, so I need to click preview again. So on my phone, I can, yeah, switch back to what we were before. And this very simple app where we just started. Oops. Okay, I think that's fine. Okay, and so the first thing we're going to try to add, which is the, if you remember, in the app itself, and we're going to add two buttons or two tabs at the bottom. That's the first thing we're going to add. Currently, we don't have anything yet. So to do that, we need this element called button navigation. Okay, and so it asks you to first remove the scroll view, this default one, and then it says, and it tells you, say, saving at this point would cause the preview app to crash because it needs certain view on that. So instead of scroll view, it will need something else. Okay, and so we're gonna just take these out, and then we add in scroll view. So we just search. Sorry, we need to. Sorry, bottom navigation, which is this one. I will put that inside here. Okay. Okay, and it comes with something kind of preloaded. If I save now, and this is what it looks like so far. Yeah, and it have this. Where does the home page? So this is the button navigation we just added in, and it come with it is all these things. These are three tabs. We're gonna change to the ones we want, and there's other some text that's come with it, and which you don't need to keep. You can change as well. And tab stripped text, you go to home, settings, search. Okay, and so what we need to do is, so you can see that's the button navigation element, and it comes with an tab strip that represents basically this part. And then how many tabs do you want on there is defined by tab stripped items. So in our case, we want two tab. One is called my task. The other one is for the completed tasks. So we will keep two of these and delete the third one. If I save now, you can see now, okay, now I have two. Okay, for the first tab, I want to call it my tasks. And I don't have a picture for it yet, so I can delete this one or maybe just comment out. And you can see the text is really small, but you can see now this is changed to my task with tiny text. And similarly, I'm gonna call the second one completed tasks, and then take out the image as well. If you want image, you can add some, and then I'm gonna make the text a little bit bigger, so you can see here. So these are essentially just labels. So if I want to change the task, I just formatted the label element. So what I'm going to do here is say label. Oh, actually, what I'm going to do is just put label here. So this will apply the same rules to both button and label. Yeah, and turns out to be slightly too big. And you can see now I have two tabs, my task and completed task. And because it's slightly too big, you can't see everything there. So maybe I just call it completed. So make sure we have everything. Okay, so that's the tab strip, and the next part is the tab content items. So each of these matches each of these tab stripped items. So the first tab content items will be matching or be what you displayed if you click the first tab, my task, and then the second tab content items will be what you displayed, click the completed tab. So let me see. So basically now they are all empty, so it doesn't do anything yet. So what we can do is, for example, okay. So you can see in the first tab, content item currently, and it has this label and has a text say home page, which is why you have this home page here. So instead you can say, let's call this, I don't know, tasks. Maybe just call it tasks, and I'll take out the class. Okay, and you can see, okay, so that's your view. It's what you click, and if I click, I can click and complete it as well. And currently it shows setting page, because in the second one the text is setting page. And then I change to something else. Completed. Then I'll take out the formatting as well for now. And if I save, and you can see, if I now click completed, you see completed task. And if I click on task, and you see tasks. And you can add more things to that as well. And we don't need the third tab content item because we only have two tabs. Okay, and actually you can see there's a little bit problem here now, and you can see this title to do apps. So anyone want to have a guess what happened, why it appears here? No. So I think what happens is when I drop the button navigation element, it's actually dropped in here. You can see it dropped in the middle of the action bar element. Does that make sense? And then so that's why this part I get to the bottom now. So obviously that's why when I say when you drag drop something, it's a bit fiddly. You have to make sure it actually is where you want it to do. Yeah, so now it looks better. So you have this an action bar back to do apps. This is the text, you can do more things, and you have two buttons that you can click. Yeah, I think Okay, and so next one is we're gonna changing the layout of the page. Okay, so far we are using a stack layout, which is okay, and then instead we're gonna changing the layout of the first tab, and which is this tasks tab, and so well actually I think that might be a good time to go back to the slides. I want to explain different layout very quickly. This should go to the okay. And in NativeScript, and it has these 5 different layouts. So we already see the stack layout, and you can also cover grid layout as well. And if you wanted, you can use other layouts. And as we mentioned before, when you use some layout, and the way it works is slightly different. You use the element, and everything inside the layout element will be organized a particular way. And so in this case, and you have a stack layout element, and you can say orientation is vertical. So that means these things are stacked vertically, and you can actually change this to horizontal, and these things will stack from left to right. You can set the size. So this is quite small. Sorry, this is basically a rectangle, sorry, a square, 22 by 210, and you can set the background color as well. Then inside it, it has different these labels, and it's slightly harder to see in the text. Maybe I made it bigger. No, doesn't help. And so there's actually a little bit text inside of each of these squares. And the first one says label 1, the second one says label 2, 3, and 4, so on. And the size is set here with height. And you can see the background color to red, green, blue, and yellow. That's why they appear like this. So that makes a stack layout. And the second one we're going to use very soon is the grid layout, and which the concept is very similar to CSS grid we covered. So you just specify which row and which columns and an element will be positioned. And you can say, by default, it will take just one row and one column, basically one cell. But you can say, okay, I want something and let's take more than one cell or more than one rows. Well, okay, at least you can scroll down. Yeah. And so this is what grid layout can do. Again, you're inside a template and there's a page, and then you say, this is my grid layout. We're going to come back to these a little bit later, but essentially it defines the columns and the rows. And if we look at, again, the same labels, label 1, it says row 0, column 0, and background color equal to red. So that's why you get this little one here, the red. So that's column 0, row 0. Okay. And so the second one, label 2, it says row 0, still the first row, column 1, so that's the second column. But it also says column span equal to 2. So column span, that means this one will take the same row, but it takes 2 columns. So that's why it says background color equal to green. And so that's why I see this green one takes 2 cells in the same row. Yeah. And then you can see, yeah, maybe just have a look at the last one, the label 3, and which has a background color blue. So that essentially is this one here. It says row 1, so that's the second row. Column 0, so first column. This time it says row span equal to 2. So that means I'm going to span 2 rows. So span second and third row. That's what the blue one looks like. And you can probably guess what the other for why they look that way. Okay, and now we come back to this part. how do you specify this? So first, this one says I want 3 columns, and then that means I want 3 rows, and the 3 columns. The first one is a number. That means if it's a column, that means its width is 50 pixels. Yeah. So you can have a fixed width, and this one auto. That just means you didn't specify a particular width, and it will change depends on the text inside. So for example, in this case, it will be just wide enough to show all the text. And finally, you have the star. It just means take as much space as possible. And so in this case, it will say for the last column, and you just take the remaining space. Because you can see this and grid layout itself has a fixed width of 210. So the first column will take 50 pixels. Second column will be however wide it needs to fit all the content in. And the remaining, which is the star, will be the third column width. Yeah, so that was these 3 points means. Okay, now we actually get back to the playground. We're gonna try to do change the grid layout. Where were we? Okay, it says. Okay, it's want to take out the grid layout here. So this is our task, and then to drag and drop another grid layout inside. So all it really wants is want you to. Okay, I just want to make sure I drop at the right place. Okay, and to come, say, give you these things, which is come with the default. And if I save now, you can see this is what the app would look like. So essentially, this picture is actually should be the same uh, as this picture here, but currently, the height is a bit small. Oops, in here, so it does not show the entire square. Let me see if I can change the height. Button navigation. Okay, let me see if I can change this height equal to how much more do we need? 500? No, doesn't change much. Sorry. Yes, it's not this one here. And it's actually, you just need to change the height here of the grid layout. Yeah, the width works, but not the height. Nope, I couldn't get it to work. So this is the best I can do so far. So if I change the width, and you can see this becomes wider, the height doesn't really change the height, it's still there. Maybe this, maybe it's to do with this. Okay, that looks better. So now it looks like this. And so now it gives you 1,000 pixels height before that. So obviously, maybe ideally we'll maybe want to say 2,000. Yeah. So now it actually is at the bottom, and this is, you can see everything. Yeah. Okay, and the grid layout. Now let's take out these labels. And just a background color. And then we add a new text label. So basically, it happens again. Now you can see when I try to drag label, it somehow move inside the grid layout part, which is not really where I wanted it. Instead I wanted here. This will be my tasks. Basically, just bring back what was there like before, and you can see now this is and what it looks like now. And so we have a grid layout, and currently have nothing inside, and had a label, and it says my tasks, and it only shows a tiny bit, and because we set a very small width and 60, and for the first column, so if I choose this to auto, then you can see, okay, now you can see that's the first element. Okay, and so the next step is to, in the app, to add the text fields where people can type in the new tasks. So the element for that will just be called text field. So if I search here, make sure I have that ready. I say text. I can drop in here just to make, where's the cursor? Yes. Okay. And then you should have a text field. And if I change the hint to new task, if I save, oh, couldn't see anything. Is that because the background color? Hmm. Hmm. Oh. So yeah, currently it doesn't show anything particularly. Not sure why. Go. Show QR code. Yeah, maybe text field. So we had a label. Yes, it's maybe partly because we haven't set the row and columns for each of these elements yet. Yeah, and also yeah, just to mention again, for example, when you drop in the text field, it will automatically create a variable and link that using Vue model says text field value, and you can see in your here you had a data and text field value already defined for you. Okay, next we add a list. So basically, that will be the one we display all the tasks that user add. And let's get the list of you. Come. Okay, and so they changed that as well. So by default, no, we're still not seeing anything. So currently, the app does not show anything particular except the first text label. So we're now gonna set the rows for each of these so we can actually see this better. Or hopefully we'll see. So we can see, sorry, it should be all these things. Am I adding the wrong places? Okay. Yeah. Sorry. So one of the reasons we're not seeing those is because I have been adding the text field and the list view under the completed task tab. So that's why you're not seeing it. Let's see if I now click completed, and you can actually see the list, but still not there. Sorry?
Very tiny.
Which one? And tasks, complete tasks. Yes, yes. Yeah. The new task is there. Yeah. Okay, so we need to move this to the right tab first. So we have to move these ones and then give them proper rows so it will display correctly. Okay, so label, so they should go here. Okay, I'll call this in row equal to 0, row equal to 1. No, that should be 2. The text field will be row equal to 1. Right. Yeah, let's take this one out. Yeah, it looks a bit better. So that's what it looks like now. So this is the task tab, and you have the my task title. That's still quite small. But that's the text field, and that's the list of countries. Okay, let me first just fix the text.
Can you change rows to auto in the grid layout?
Not really. I could. So you mean change this one? You can try. Doesn't really affect. Actually, that only affects. This only affects the first row, really. Anyway, so the first row would be here. It doesn't really change. I think it's mostly because the font size of the text field is small. So if I just add all these annoying things, and if I put text field as well, yeah, now it becomes bigger. And you can see that's my new task. I can type in something now. I can click, and I can start typing something, and that will be actually already stored in the variable in the view. If you remember in the code, here, text field view value, those automatically saved. just we can't do anything about it yet. Hopefully we'll be able to get to the stage we added as a task. Okay, now we actually just remove all the countries because we don't really interested in these countries anyway. So let's delete the code, both the data and on the UI. Come on, keep going, don't stop countries. So all we need just so far is a text view. And then we take out the countries. And actually, if you look at the code here, and the list is actually using a view 4, but it just called 4, v4, and say countries in countries, and then repeat. So we just need, we're not gonna do this 4 now. Flexbox out. We're gonna take that out as well. Take this out. So basically, in the list of view, we're gonna just, and in the end, display a list of tasks. So I'm not gonna use these. Okay. And I think now, okay, it still works, but looks like this now. And so you have the title where you can type in task. Currently, the list is empty. There's nothing in there. It asks you to keep the name. Nope, I'm not gonna do that. Okay, and so now we're gonna actually adding our own tasks now. And so this part you would be quite familiar by now. So we're gonna using this task or this list. We have these three tasks. So we add them to the data variable part, data part of your script. So you have data. So we're gonna do to do. So we have this defined. And then for the list view, which used to show a list of countries, and now we're gonna, where was it? Here. So we're gonna say for this time we're gonna do to do in to do's. Okay, and then here we're gonna just add. Okay, I'm not gonna drag and drop. Label text equal to. Yeah, it's actually worked. Okay. Yeah. And so what we did is we're starting actually using Vue, and so we. I wish could stay this one, keep this one up there, and so we can use the 4. Essentially, is v4, and to do in the to dos, the to do s is this array we had. And then we do the view template thing. Is here you have to explicitly say v template, and the label is a native script element. And then anyone remember this column thing? Yeah. So the column is the shorthand for vbind, and it says the text attributes equal to and to-do dot name. So we have to-do, it has name property. So that's why in apps it shows all these. And then currently, so the last is meant to be go grocery shopping, and it's not showing up entirely. Okay. Yeah. But anyway, so we're probably gonna stop there. We're running out of time. So a good thing to do now is that probably you want to save, and then later on we're gonna continue next week and lecture demo. We have the version 2 there. We're gonna continue. Yeah. Okay, that's it. And so just lastly, the actual coursework will be something similar to this. You create your app in the playground. Obviously, this will be the app actually for the after school, say the activity search and user, etc. Yeah. Okay.